Hi everyone, welcome to episode 68 of Woolen Spinning. My name is Rachel. It is Thursday, May 4th, 2017, and I want to thank you so much for being here and for joining me today. I can be found pretty much everywhere as Wellford Pearls, and I want to welcome you to this place. To those who are new viewers of the show, thank you so much for checking me out, and to those who are returning, and for our Patreon subscribers, thank you so much for sticking with me and for continuing to support the show. I want to welcome, we've had quite a few new Patreons over the last week or so, and I just want to say an extra special welcome to those of you who have just started to support and contribute to the show. You guys are what keeps the show on the air week after week after week, and I really appreciate it. I have just a couple of really quick announcements, and then we're going to get into the show. Any of the monthly content that any of our Patreon subscribers expect each month has been released. It is one day prior to the early access to the Woolen Spinning radio show, which is our audio podcast on patreon.com/wellfordpearls. So for those who have access early, you will be enjoying a show tomorrow. For everybody else, you will I will release the show next Friday. So look forward to that. I wanted to send a really quick shout out to my friend Katrina. The next part of our breed and color studies is all up and running. We are looking at split complements this time round again, but on carded fiber, which is really exciting. And we are looking at we're looking at Gotland, and I'm still coughing a little bit, and I just get, it's right in the back of my throat, so I'm sorry. We're looking at Gotland and BFL this time round, so I hope that you will be joining us. Everybody is welcome, and the study starts on, has already started, so the listings are all up on Etsy. I will link to it in the show notes available at wellfordpearls.com. Way back a few months ago, I asked for some feedback from a few people on Patreon. I just chose some people at random and sent an email and asked them for a little bit of feedback. And I said if they responded that I would send them a little bit of something in the mail. So Denise, you will be expecting some stitch markers in the mail over the next week or so. I'll pop them in the mail this week. And I hope that you enjoy knitting with them. So congratulations. I think that's it for housekeeping. See, we blasted through it so fast. In today's show, I have a little bit in progress. I don't have a lot. I've been, like you've realized over the last couple weeks, I've been blasting through my projects and getting stuff off the spindles, getting stuff off my wheel and getting it finished. So I don't have a lot to share with you this week in terms of spins in progress. I do, however, have a big knit in progress that has made some major progress this week. So I hope that you'll stay tuned, and I will share that with you in just a moment. So for spins in progress, I have one thing on my wheel that I can't really show you, but I'll insert some video. I have been working on some core spinning. I started working with, and I'll keep this to a minimum for crinkling, but this is some club fiber that I sent out as part of the Patreon support back in the fall. I think it was in November that this went out. It was some Corriedale alpaca, there was some silk in there, some fire, I don't think there was Firestar. Let me just look at my handy dandy cheat sheet here. merino, corriedale mohair, and alpaca. And it was a gradient. So for those who received it, it went from this really bright red. This was the darker medium color, and then there was this lighter color on the one side. Sorry, our dogs are running around. And I'm core spinning it, and I'm spinning it over some lace weight yarn that is, it's just a generic 2-ply wool. I don't even remember what the brand was now. As I'm core spinning over it, because it's a 2-ply lace, I'm keeping it very fine. I'm smoothing it down as I go, and keeping it very tight as I'm core spinning. I'm actually thinking about 2-plying this, so actually plying it back on itself. I don't know how I would do that because it's a gradient, so I'm sort of thinking about possibly spiral plying it with something else that would just really pick up on the movement of color from the red over to this lighter peachy tawny color. But I really like the texture, and I really like what it looks like core spun, because these colors are, I just love them. They're not super primary. They're combinations of other colors, because I used multiple colors to combine them and comb them, or card them, blend them together. And I really like the results so far. I thought I would actually have the skein done by today, and I just couldn't get back to my wheel. I haven't touched my wheel since, well, for 3 days now, which is really unusual for me. What I have been working on, though, is some spindle spinning. So I've actually been working on my spinning sock 6-pack, and you'll remember this from a while ago. And I know there's been other podcasters out there, like my friend Chrissy over at Snappy Stitches, who have spun this pack up. It comes with 6 1-ounce bumps of fiber from Sweet Georgia Yarns, and it's been sitting in my stash forever. And I have been spinning it on my one of my Kapar spindles. These are made by Hound Design in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And I was just finding it just wasn't fast enough, and for whatever reason I couldn't get the speed in there, and it kept breaking. And so I switched over to my Hound Design drop spindle, and I've been running it down my thigh, getting a lot more speed and getting a lot more twist into the singles, and it's been working really well. So that has actually been a lot more successful, and I'm actually thinking very seriously about getting another spindle like this. I just don't know what to do. There's a couple of spindle makers that I've been looking at. I have a couple of Bosworths. I really like them. But I would also like to have a variety of spindles in my collection. So I've been thinking about 1 or 2 other brands, and just sort of trying to decide what I'm going to do, because I only have 1 spindle like this, and this is about 35 grams, but I can get the speed going just really, really well by running it down my thigh. And I just need to figure out where I want to spend my money and what I want to spend my money on. So if I bring any new spindles into my fleet, I will let you know. I've also been working on my Nest Fiber Studios spin. That it's actually upstairs. It's on my matchless, and so I didn't want to bring it all down and just take it all apart and whatnot. But the colors are awesome. I'm really enjoying it, and that's part of my big stash down spinning and weaving projects that I've been working on. And if you want to know more about that and you're interested in participating in a bit of a stash down, please come over to the Ravelry group and join in the conversation, because there's quite a few of us who are looking at some bigger projects to start to delve into our fiber stash a little bit more and start to do it justice. I'm sorry for all the background noise with the dogs. Charlie's really wound up, and because he can see the kids outside, he's walking around and moving around a lot, and now he's got one of Nora's toys. So I'm going to get it back, and I'll be right back. Sorry about that. So Nest Fiber Studios is on my wheel, on my matchless. I've got my spinning sock 6-pack on my spindles, and I'm working through that. I've been making myself, have you guys heard about, it was on, I can't remember what podcast it was on, but there was a, oh, maybe it was on Freakonomics. If you don't listen to Freakonomics Freakonomics Radio, the Freakonomics podcast, you definitely should be. It's a great podcast. I'm not sure if it was on there or if it was on another one, but anyways, it doesn't really matter. There's this idea behind behavior change and behind working on doing things that you don't really want to do, and you know, forcing yourself to do them basically. And the idea is that is coupling that thing that you really love to do with something that you don't love to do. So one of the things is like, you can only go to your favorite coffee shop when you take your least favorite friend or family member with you to catch up with them, because that's really what you should be doing. Or if you want to run on the treadmill and you want to make that a part of your weekly routine, you are only allowed to watch your favorite TV show when you're on the treadmill. And it goes on and on and on. So because I've been sort of bogged down by this spinning sock 6-pack, I have been making myself work on it when I'm outside with the kids in the cul-de-sac. So the only way that they're allowed to go out in the cul-de-sac and ride their bikes and have a blast and have tons of fun with the neighborhood children is because I'm spinning my 6-pack. So it sounds a bit counterintuitive because they're the ones that are having fun, but I really enjoy being outside. And if I didn't work on it, I would start something else and this would get pushed to the wayside again. So I'm sort of making myself stay focused by every time we're outside, I work on it and I don't have to work on it any other time, which that's been working quite well so far. So I'm sure you're wondering about this and you would love to hear about it because you've been probably looking at it while I've been chatting away. I hope you can see it against the bright of the sunlight outside behind me. We are having a gorgeous day here and I just couldn't bring myself to completely close the blinds and not have any natural sunlight in here. But I also felt like I needed to record at a table today because I'm just getting more and more stuff that I need to chat with you guys about, and it works really well. So this is my Shoreline vest. This is by Carrie Bostick Hogue. I've talked about this in previous episodes and I've showed the pattern. I've showed the book that it's in. It's in Swoon, Maine. For a little bit more about the pattern and about the history of all of this, you might want to go back to the last episode. I think I talked about this knit. And I haven't talked about it for, too much recently, but I was here when I talked to you guys last, and I was here when I talked to you about it before then. So I've made massive progress. I'll show you the back first. So the back is worked with a series of short rows, and as you work up and you create your short rows, it creates an asymmetrical hem between your front and your back. So your front hem is higher than your back hem, and it gives you about 3 extra inches in the back, which is actually really great for my build and for the way that I like my clothes to fit. And as you work your way up, you work it seamlessly, and then when you get to the armholes, you start to break off for your armholes and work your back and your front separately. So one of the things that I really like about this yarn that I'm using is because it's a 2-ply lace, 2-ply sport weight that I'm working on. This is my Kramer Yarns alpaca merino roving that I had originally spindle spun some of it, and then the rest of it I spun on my wheel. And I put quite a lot of twist in my singles, but then I didn't overly twist my when I plied. I kept the twist to sort of a moderate amount, maybe a little bit more than I needed in places, but for the most part I kept a twist angle of about 40 degrees. And it's not the most even spinning. It was roving that I was spinning from, and there are places where it's a little tiny bit thicker. In the knitting, you can't tell. You'd have to like come up and get a magnifying glass and really inspect my stitches. And a lot of this unevenness that you're seeing back here and these wrinkles and stuff will come out when I block it. But what I will say is because it was a 2-ply and I'm knitting it on 3.75 millimeter needles, which I think is a US size 5, if I'm remembering. I'm getting better about that. I just couldn't keep it in my mind, the 2 different sizes, but I'm getting better. Yeah, so US size 5. This has ended up just having lovely drape, and it's a nice fabric without being dense. If I was to knit this again, I would knit it at exactly the same gauge. I think I ended up with 23 or 24 stitches to 4 inches. So that's the back, and you break off at the arms, and you work your armhole and your armhole shaping at the same time, which is really nice rather than having to go back and pick up stitches later and finish off the armhole later. As you can see, I've got ends that I still need to weave in. And then on the front, you work your armhole shaping and your front bust shaping at the same time as you work your way up. So this will eventually be a button band, and then I need to pick up along here for my collar, and then this buttons at the front, about 3 to 4 buttons, I think. And then it just is open in an A-line sort of shape. My washed and blocked gauge was a good 2 inch, like this will be a good 2 inches bigger all around when I finish. So I'm expecting this to close a little bit tighter once it's washed. Right now it's obviously not washed. And I need to seam my armholes. So I still need to seam at the top of my arms, and then I can pick up for my collar, and then after that I can pick up for my button band. So I'm actually really hoping that by next week this will be finished. The yarn has been amazing to work with. I mentioned last week that it was bleeding onto my hands really badly, and I've ended up with very purple hands throughout working on this, and that's certainly been the case the whole time. It's been a little bit frustrating because it's hard to work on like at places like work where I know my hands are just going to be so dyed by the time I finish even just 20 minutes of knitting. But I will say that as soon as I wash under soap and water, just regular soap and lukewarm water, my hands are clean again. So I'm really hoping that when I go to wash this, that if I give it a really good soak, get some of that excess dye out of there, that it won't fade too much, but that I'll get rid of some of that excess dye. One thing that I will say, down here at the back, which you may not be able to see, I can see the color transition between this skein and this skein of yarn. And my skeins, as you can see, were quite large. Each of my skeins was about 300 plus yards. And I really wish in hindsight that I had done some 2x2 striping of the 2 skeins in here as I transition to the next skein. Because again, up here, this is the 3rd skein and this is the 2nd skein, and I striped it through here so that you can't see the transition of the 2 colors, because again, the 2 skeins were ever so slightly different. Not as different as these 2, but certainly there was a slight difference in the color, and I'm glad that I didn't end up with a line across my back. So that maybe for those who are new to sweater knitting or are new to bigger knits, especially garments, keep that in mind if you're doing your own spinning and dyeing, or just even if you're working with indie dyed yarn or any small batch yarn. There might be a little bit of discrepancy between your skeins, and it's actually not a big deal. I think it adds interest. I think that having yarns that are have that I was gonna say variety, but I mean the interest of something that's truly sort of hand done and doesn't have that sort of factory look to it. You want a certain amount of quality control, but a little bit of discrepancy and change in the color, to me, it adds interest and adds depth. And of course, with the lots of people love kettle dyeing, and to me it adds interest to the garment, that it's not all just one flat color. For me, this is going to be worn outside with the kids, walking to school, out in the cul-de-sac, going for hikes. I'll probably wear it with this t-shirt underneath. And so to me, this isn't going to be on a runway. I'm not going to be wearing it to a nightclub or out in the evening. Where I want something really beautiful and tailored and finished, which sounds a little bit self-deprecating, but I mean that I want something that I can use and wear and not feel any guilt about. So this very much fits the bill, and a little bit of discrepancy between the colors it's annoying, and I should have known better, but next time I'll definitely stripe my skeins and alternate my skeins to minimize those color stripes that end up in those stark color changes. I also suspect when I put this in to wash it, a lot of that, because I think I'm going to lose a lot of the dye, I suspect a lot of that will work itself out in the wash, and I will definitely keep you posted on how that goes. So that is my Shoreline vest, and I hope, I really hope by next week that I have it done. I'm going to stop talking. I really want to get out into the beautiful sunshine. I hope you're all having a wonderful week. Happy spinning. If there's anything going on in the Ravelry group, or you want to know anything about things that are happening, events that are happening, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me. You can get in touch with me on Ravelry or through email at rachel@wellforpearls.com. Until next week, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Happy spinning, everyone. Bye.